Hey guys, Magna back here with yet another Legacy of the Void beta cast. This is going to be an interesting game here between HuK and Neuro. I always get Puck and HuK mixed up because they sound so much the same. But HuK is definitely a very formidable Protoss. If you don't know his name by now, you've been living under a rock because he's been one of the best foreigners for a really long time. So he's still playing Legacy of the Void. Neuro, of course, we've seen him in a ZvZ before against Stefano, and this time he is fighting a Protoss in HuK. So we're going to have to see how this matchup really lines up. We've seen a little bit of this in Archon mode, but nothing in 1v1, so we're going to have to see what both these guys opt to do. From what I understand, I've been watching a little bit of HuK's stream, and he does a lot of disruptor drops, multi-pronging stuff with warp prisms, things like that. So I would not be too surprised if we saw stuff like that. Neuro, by the way, going for Hatch first. And this looks like a more economic version of the Hatch first in the sense that he didn't rush it like we saw in the game that I just cast between Terran and a Zerg pseudo-random versus BNet player. HuK going to go ahead and drop a Nexus after dropping his first Gateway. So I think Nexus first and Gateway first are both pretty safe in this matchup. I think even Gateway first is overly safe to a point where you'd have to do something like rush off of it for it to really be worthwhile. I think or I guess rush some tech or something. But point being is that Protoss seems less vulnerable than ever against Zerg cheeses and all-ins and stuff in Legacy of the Void. So that's a really nice thing for Protoss, at least, if they can't scout and whatnot. Even if the Zerg opens 12 pool and you open Gateway, you'll still be pretty much fine, considering how late their pool is going to be versus how timely your Gateway was. Your Gateway is going to be almost at the same time as their pool anyway, even if they do something like that. So any sort of Forge Expand openers, anything like that, those are going to be basically gone unless it's explicitly a Cannon Rush opener, which should be kind of cool for both sides here. So yeah, we'll have to see how all that tends to work out, but I'm thinking that with the economy changes and stuff, there's not going to be too much threat for Protoss in the early game. They can kind of do whatever they want, and things like Forge Expands or really old builds, things like that. Of course, my phone chirps at the most inopportune times all the time. Any Forge Expand builds, anything like that, those are going to be basically dead, especially defensive ones, which is why I say that Cannon Rush builds could still be viable just to try to catch the Zerg off guard, but it's not going to be like you're just going to be sitting behind a wall of cannons, considering the gateways can come up so fast now. So HuK's second expansion finishing up here. Did kind of gloss over it a little bit, but there is a Robo on the way. Again, considering that we're expecting those disruptor drops and warp prism harassments and stuff like that, not too surprising from HuK. And I have to say I'm editorializing it just a little bit, only because I have seen HuK's stream. I haven't actually seen this replay before, but he does disruptor drops like all day, and he'll do it to anybody at any race, doesn't matter. And he really likes things like that, so we'll have to see if that's what he opts to do. Zealot going to come up here and plug the wall. He's got a sentry on the way as well. Immortal on the way, so this is not what I was expecting. Immortal coming out now. We might be able to see the new hardened shields in action. As far as I can tell, they're different, of course, because it is an activated ability, but if you compare it to how it was before, it really seems about the same in a lot of scenarios, if not being a little bit worse in some scenarios, considering those high damage units can really power through those shields fairly comfortably. So we'll have to see what this is going to be for. I don't think any Immortal all-ins are going to be too great on this map, considering there's a pretty large amount of surface area for the Zerg player. I guess there are some tiny little chokes here trying to get up the ramp and whatnot, but this being a ramp is a pretty big deal in comparison to it just being flat ground. But Zerg going for a lair pretty quickly, speed on the way as well, and as soon as the Zerg understands what's going on here, if this is just going to be a straight up Immortal all-in, they should be okay against this. Excuse me. This could also be for an Immortal drop, so we'll have to see exactly what this is going to be for. And yeah, there's the Warp Prism, so this is going to be a Immortal drop, something we haven't quite seen yet before. Mothership Core finally on the way. This is a super late Mothership Core, but of course, if he's trying to rush out other things with his gas, then it wouldn't be too big of a problem. He also does have quite a bit of gas, so maybe just trying to feel out some builders here. And of course, since it is beta, nobody's really playing overly seriously. Like, it's not like you're trying to be perfect in beta because everything's going to change anyway. So this could just be like, oh, I forgot my Mothership Core. Oh, okay, whatever, I'll just make it. That's probably what this is going to be. HuK has still a reasonable amount of gas, so he could drop anything he wants to. He puts down 2 sentries. He's going to go ahead and take a third base while this Warp Prism harass does move out. So he does have the 2 Immortals loaded in there. There is a Spire on the way, so he can't stay on this tech for too long. trying to push away this Overlord here. Unfortunately, does not drop the creep in time. He could have blocked that expansion for a little bit of time, but the Immortal drop does come in. We're going to see this micro here in just a second. Especially the Warp Prism pickup range is going to be a big deal. So he could drop these Immortals like even as far as over here, and even have the Warp Prism sitting over here and still be able to pick them up from that distance. So a little bit of a warp in his Zealots here, kind of just punishing Neuro for not really having any units right now. And he can turn on these shields at any time. He's just going to wait for his regular ones to start to dwindle. And now you can see him absorbing a little bit of that damage. You can see it went away fairly quickly, so it's not like it's crazy. He should be able to still pick up these Immortals though. And yeah, you can see the distance on those pickups is actually pretty long. Is he going to get the second one? He doesn't want to get his Warp Prism killed. And yeah, he's just trying to bait out some shots here. Really nice control here from HuK. So both these Immortals still alive with very low hit points, and all those Queens and all those Zerglings are dead. But he needs to not overstay his welcome here, because this Spire is going to pop here pretty soon. Baneling Nest is on the way. 2 Zealots trying to deal a little bit of damage. By the way, you'll notice the warp-in timing's a lot longer on these gateway units now. Once HuK figures out that there's only Zerglings here, maybe he sees the Spire, he should have a lot more time to figure out what's going on and send these guys home. But these mutas are going to pop in just a little bit, and you definitely don't want to lose this. So I think he realizes what's going on here. He's either going to redrop here for just a second and get out of there, but these Warp Prisms are still the same speed as the previous iterations. I guess since they've been buffed since Heart of the Swarm. But now the mutas are out, and now you got to be like, oh man, this is so bad. I should have scouted a little bit more, or at least realized what's going on, but the Warp Prism's dead. These Immortals are going to be dead as well, so a little bit unfortunate here from HuK. Stargate's on the way, but these Stargates are really late. HuK kind of in panic mode right now, setting up some cannons and trying to protect himself from these mutas, considering he has very little tech against that. So the mutas heading out right now, becoming a big problem. More mutas being added on, even Baneling speed being added on. This is pretty cool. Hydralisk Den on the way as well, so all sorts of stuff coming down here from the Zerg. The Protoss kind of just hunkering down in his base, adding up these cannons and kind of sitting his army in the middle, trying to protect the best he can. Gonna lose maybe a sentry? No, not quite, as he's actually holding this off pretty well. Only a handful of Mutalisks right now, as the Zerg did get his economy damaged a fair bit from those earlier attacks. He almost seems to be a little bit larva-starved right now too, considering he's making Zerglings and he has all this money sitting around as well. So losing those Queens from that Warp Prism drop was definitely a pretty big deal. Phoenix on the way now to start dealing with the mutas. Honestly, if you're this Zerg, you should probably just stop making mutas altogether. Here's a fleet beacon. So we could be seeing some really longer term tech here out of the Stargates from HuK. Carriers are really good now, so I would not be surprised to see carriers come out at all. +1 attack on the way as well, so it's going to benefit both the Phoenix against these mutas and whatever else comes out of the Stargates here, but probably not going to be for anything too weird like a mothership, considering that didn't get changed at all. We'll have to see what's going to come out of these Stargates. There's still only 2, so it's not super overwhelming. And normally if you want to go for carriers or Tempest or something like that, you want to add on more Stargates, but I wonder if he's trying to try this out as more of a supplementary type of unit composition. So Fleet Beacon's finishing up. I guess we'll just watch these Stargates and see what happens. Mutas are doing a little bit of harassment over here as they're able to get, I think, just 1 probe so far. And the Glaive Worms will bounce to kill a couple more. So the Phoenix are basically like AFKing right now, not really doing a whole lot to stop these mutas. So the mutas are coming back around. I guess I should have just considered the possibility that this Fleet Beacon would just be for Phoenix range. So Phoenix range is going to be what is coming up, but if he's only harassing with 4 mutas, you have to think that it's probably not going to really be worth it. So he starts to add on Void Rays. He could even cancel this Phoenix range if he wanted to, because it's really probably not going to be very important from this point forward. I think he's making a second Robobay, right? I'm pretty sure there's already one down. So, at least there was. Maybe he canceled it. I think that's what's going on here, because I am almost positive I saw one coming up on the production tab, and there's not one now. So, and there's a very unlikely chance it got killed. More likely is probably he just canceled it and wanted to switch his tech, as he did see the mutas coming out. So now he's seeing a lot of Hydras, understanding that he probably needs to switch his strategy just a little bit. So he's going to go for Zealot legs, +1 air, +1 ground. Phoenixes hanging out here, killing a lot of Overlords. He did let that Phoenix upgrade finish, by the way, so he should be in pretty good shape. At least I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, so Phoenix upgrade range is done. Here's the carriers coming out now. So it's actually going to be both. Carriers on the way, the Disruptors on the way as well. So carrier plus Disruptor, it's going to be pretty good against Hydras in this game. Here's some Vipers right now, and Parasitic Bomb can be pretty good against these Interceptors. So we'll have to see what the choice is here, whether these Vipers are going to be to pull the carriers in, or if they're going to be to try and parasitic bomb the interceptors and try to kill those off as soon as possible, which we learned from an earlier game that actually is possible. So Viper's coming out now. HuK could have gotten an amazing pick off there if he got that Viper. It would have been really good, as these Phoenix have very little utility right now. Of course, you could try and mix in Phoenix to deal with the Vipers, so you could have like 6 or 8 Phoenix and try to target down the Vipers before they drop too many spells. That could definitely be an option. I've even seen that in Heart of the Swarm in rare games from players like Liquid Hero. They'll mix them in as well. But interesting way this is developing, as it is Carrier Disruptor coming out right now for the Protoss. Crackling upgrades. This is chitinous plating, by the way, on the Ultras, so trying to get into Ultras as well, but honestly I don't think that's going to do too much considering this army is not really that threatening to begin with. So we'll have to see if he does produce any Ultras, but well, it's just, most of these games we're just going to have to sit and watch and learn as we go, so it's going to be kind of what's going on here. Really annoying Zergling burrowed to stop this expansion, and Neuro can see this, of course, considering he's standing right on there. So Neuro has to know that HuK is trying to take a 4th base. By the way, he's already half mined out at one base and at another, so if you add these all up, this is basically a half base, one base. So HuK is only really mining on 2 bases right now, considering the lateness of this 4th base. So little tactics like burrowing Zerglings or dropping creep, it's going to have a huge impact on the game, considering how much it's going to slow people down and really reduce their mining for a significant period of time. And by the way, in all these games I've casted, I don't think I've really ever seen both players max out comfortably, like max out with a bank. I think I've seen it once in an Archon mode game, but besides that, it seems pretty rare for players to start maxing out and get huge armies nowadays. So Disruptor is also being incremented out once again, +2 on the way. I don't believe that the attack upgrades actually benefit the Disruptors at all, considering it is a spell. So I think those are pretty much null for any Disruptor type of play. But the carrier upgrades are definitely important, as the carrier upgrades scale almost as good as any unit in the game. It scales on the same plane as things like Marines and Zerglings, where they get huge bonuses from their attack upgrades, making them almost doubly as valuable versus being 0-0. So upgrades on the carrier is definitely very important. Here's another Warp Prism being mixed in, and here's a little bit of an attack. So you can see the Disruptors coming forward trying to blow up some Zerglings, but the Ultras have insane armor, so these carriers probably aren't going to do very well against the Ultras as far as targeting them down right away. But again, you have to stress that the, by the way, parasitic bombs are out right now, so the carriers' interceptors are all gone. The Viper's absolutely dominating this army right now. Huge detonations on these Disruptors, but if there's nothing to use on the carriers, then these things are pretty worthless. I think the Zerg might actually just be able to kill him right now. So you can see those parasitic bombs on the interceptors are really, really good. HuK's just scrambling desperately to try and get some more interceptors in these carriers. He needs them desperately, as they are so minimal that the Zerg can almost just heal through their damage. So the carrier's just getting wrecked by those Vipers. I didn't even see those parasitic bombs drop, but the parasitic bombs did actually just wreck everything. And there's just not a lot of options here. I guess you can see that the carriers are still pretty good against these Hydras, and HuK does just deploy them and say, you know what, they're just going to stay here until they're gone. Then you'll know that by having these little timers over the top of the interceptors. So HuK just deploying those interceptors, but at the same time the Zerglings are ravaging everything. These Zerglings are crackling, so they should power through probes and stuff really, really fast. HuK is basically dead. This is a really good composition here from Neuro to drop those parasitic bombs, and the parasitic bombs is so strong that I don't know really how the carriers are supposed to deal with that unless you just try to see if you can get some feedbacks off before they can drop them. But the interceptors will always take precedence and deploy out there before you really want to, so HuK just gets crushed by that timing from the Zerg. And I guess to be fair, the Zerg was on better mining for most of the game, considering HuK was kind of stuck on these 3 bases, couldn't get a 4th for quite a long time, and as soon as he did, the Zerg just crashed in there, made him waste his money. But yeah, these carriers were next to useless in this battle, considering how fast they died to the parasitic bombs. So there's going to have to be some other solutions from Protoss to try to deal with these things, as Vipers are getting insanely useful against Protoss in pretty much every circumstance. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll be back very soon, that is, with some more replays and some more streaming and stuff like that, so look out for that. Definitely subscribe if you want to see more content. If you want to check out my stream in the occasions that I do stream, check it out on twitch.tv/magnatsc2. Thanks to these guys for sharing these replays, by the way. I really need more replays, so if you know any streamers or anybody that has replay packs that they release, send them my way and let me know. But I'll see you guys really soon with more games, and take care.